In Edo State, we thought it was going to be the normal story. We'll hear that there's a pandemic somewhere, and we'll see and be reading it in the news, and eventually we'll go through it like we had during the Ebola season. Just before we knew it, we were caught up in the web of cases presenting themselves in Edo State. As you all know, Edo State is unique for being one of the states with the most mobile populace. Our people travel wide, very wide at all times, particularly to the Western world. So we had our first case in Edo State in March, and soon after, what happened was beyond what some of us in the health sector had ever experienced and what we could imagine. His Excellency himself took over the driver's seat by constituting a committee to respond to this pandemic that we are still going through. He did not just constitute a committee, he made himself the chairman of the committee, and that was an unusual political will that you find very rarely in this country. And from that March 2020, that's 23rd precisely March, he engaged the entire health sector and the state in ensuring that our response turned out to be one of the best in the country. What did we do right? The first thing was to ensure that we had the best heads in the state pulled together to brainstorm, plan out the strategies to make things work out. And this was done by he himself getting across to all the key individuals from the tertiary institutions, the secondary facilities, up to the political class to ensure that they were fully involved in the response. He did not stop there, he backed it up with financing, which is one of those reasons that we have always experienced in the state that has made things not to work so well. He funded the program of the response excellently well, beyond what the national could present. We had a lot of hiccups expecting things from the national, but beyond that, he provided more than enough resources. And in all of this too, the deputy governor was placed as the lead for the technical response. And all of us in the health sector had no option but to quickly key in and bring out the best in us. So with that, we had the EOC constituted properly, and then given the enabling empowerment to function. The various pillars of response were all constituted, starting from the surveillance pillar, the case management pillar, the laboratory pillar, also the logistic and supplies pillar, as well as the other necessary pillars. Risk communication, which was very important, was also funded. One of the key things, and which was one of the best achieved activities we had during the response, was the establishment of extra molecular laboratories in Edo State. That of UBTH was supported to come on board. Then, before now, we had only Ira Specialty Teaching Hospital. But with this response, we had UBTH bringing out its molecular laboratory for testing cases. Thereafter, Edo Specialist Hospital was put on board also, all with the state government funding. And with the support of Edo State government, we also were able to ensure that Lilly, the private sector, had its laboratory established. These 4 laboratories in Edo State has made Edo State one of the best states in terms of testing in the country. And beyond that, we also had the privilege of having the private laboratories working with the national, that's the NCDC, to provide testing for people who were traveling on international trips. Having said this, we went into the nooks and crannies of this state. We went to the rural settings, not just in the cities. We had our focal persons in all aspects or parts of the state. Beyond that, we had the logistic activities well planned. One of the unique things that we gained from His Excellency's leadership was the fact that we needed to have a very organized plan. We had flowcharts to make things easy for us to take actions, and responsible persons were properly situated to ensure that in all our responses, we had them by name and by phone numbers. So with any challenge you had in the field, all you needed to do was to just pick your flowchart and you could pick out who was responsible. It's just some preamble to what we have done so well in Edo State. On that note, I want us to continuously celebrate our Governor, His Excellency, for the smart and intelligent leadership he has given us in this response, even beyond what even the health professionals would have done.
The workshop today on transformation of health is just one of the many efforts of governments in ensuring the transformation of the public service. So what you are seeing today is also happening across the entire spectrum of the public service. But why is government making this effort? The governor believes that there can't be no development without strong institutions. He has told us repeatedly that the days of building individuals are over in Edo State. It is time to build institutions because, like Mr. Governor has repeatedly said, it is institutions that ensure that there is development in the state. You know that right now, many states are retrenching workers. Some states are already retrenching workers, but they're having a running battle with labor. In Edo State, we are not retrenching workers. We are employing more. As I speak to you, government has concluded plans to bring in about 1,594 workers into the public service. In the next few days, we shall be giving out letters of appointment or employment to 600, about 600 of that number. And then the others will come in subsequently. You know very well that Edo State is one of the only 5 states that are working hard to ensure the sustenance of the contributory pension scheme in this country. That's not my word, it is what the PENCOM chairman, the Pension Commission chairman, has repeatedly said. So Edo State ranks as one of the 5 most successful states in the implementation of the contributory pension scheme. Now today in Edo State, the pension process has been reformed so much that the moment you become a retiree, or retire from service, you immediately begin to get your pension. You know, those days it used to be the case that when you were retired, 20 months, 30 months, 40 months, you will not receive your pension. But today, the case is different. So pensioners are enjoying in Edo State. Promotions. In Edo State, as we speak, there are no arrears of promotion. When I was director, I lost 4 or 5 years. But in Edo State today, the 2020 promotions have been effected. In fact, the governor has given approval in respect of all outstanding promotions. Now, why is government doing this? The governor believes, and he has repeatedly said, that the public service is the fulcrum of development. If Edo State is to move forward, and it is moving forward, then the public service must be strengthened. And government is leaving no stone unturned in ensuring that the public service is strengthened. Now, for the health sector, we all know what has happened over time, especially with COVID. Mr. Governor recognizes that for us to be effective as a state, the health sector must be revamped. We've gone at those days when you require just a little service in health and you have to go abroad. We must change the narratives. So I'd like to welcome you, I'd like to thank you for coming, because at the end of the day, by the grace of God and by your efforts, we will succeed in making Edo great again, particularly in the health sector.
Using his statement as he presented it in the beginning of the whole transformation process, which was at the betting of the Edo HIP program that we ran for about 3 years in the state. Edo Health Improvement Program is a series of government-led interventions aimed at increasing access to efficient, effective, and sustainable quality health care services, with the central focus of improving the health status and well-being of citizens of Edo State. This is what we are all aiming to achieve. And so far, we have moved from where we started. We are up there already, but we need to achieve more. And that was why, having put together what our strategies are, we said we needed to call you all to listen to the strategies we have put in place and also add value to them as we all brainstorm this morning.
What are the key functions of Hospital Management Board? To provide the state-of-the-art secondary healthcare to Edo State residents in specialized areas such as obstetrics, gynecology, surgery, pediatrics, internal medicine. We also act as direct centers of referral from the primary healthcare centers. We also provide specialized healthcare services to our citizens, and from the secondary healthcare centers, we also refer to the tertiary institutions, cases that cannot be handled at that level. What is the need for this transformation of Hospital Management Board? Old and obsolete operational legal framework. It's about 32 years ago. The present edit we are working with was promulgated 32 years ago. It has not been reviewed or amended. What is the rationale for this reform? We need new investments into the secondary health sector. This will come in form of direct private investment, public-private partnership, impact investing, modern philanthropy, in which some philanthropists decide to contribute their own quota in the health sector. What of financing? This will be in terms of debt, which can be loans and bonds, equity, or a blended finance. Also, in the area of capacity building, we want to also begin to source for technical assistance, quality assurance, and clinical training. With the intervention of His Excellency, we are beginning to enjoy some of the IPPP intervention in the health sector. For example, Central Hospital, the Hospital Management Board, we are already enjoying 24 hours service, electric service delivery.
For us in Edo, like the rest of Nigeria, something happened last year, which is, for me, defining, and that is COVID-19. If anybody had told us that we will wake up one day in this world and will not be able to move, the entire world will be asked to stop. Stay where you are. Whatever happens to you where you are happens to you. You have to take care of yourself there. Nobody would have believed. Because up till then, it seemed that it didn't matter, especially for us, the elites who could afford it. It didn't matter. Our healthcare, our local healthcare system did not matter. Whether it's broken or not, no, forget it, because I'm okay. I can get on the flight the next minute. I'm off to India, I'm off to Dubai, I'm off to America to go and see my specialist. So it doesn't really matter what is happening in my backyard. But last year, you couldn't travel. You couldn't go and seek care outside. So you were forced to now deal with the situation you have. And unfortunately, a lot of people died because they could not get on that plane to go out to see their specialist outside, even when they had the money to do so. So for me, I just felt that was a wake-up call, that it is time for us to get real and begin to take ourselves really seriously. Another thing happened. With COVID, I knew something had gone wrong, and it was not something you could sit as governor and begin to direct. I didn't know enough. I said, look, let me go down to the shop floor to try and really understand what is going on with COVID. Because, like I said, I was really disturbed. And decided to participate as the chairman of the response team for Edo State. We set up a response team, and some of the members of the response team are here. And we met at 9 a.m. every day for the better part of 1 year. And those meetings for me were very, very illuminating. I knew things were bad, but I did not know they were that bad. But what struck me was, it became very apparent that as far as healthcare is concerned, our own understanding of our healthcare situation was very diverse. So for the governor and the government, healthcare meant government hospitals. So when you look at the budget of government and how much was being spent on healthcare, it was all supposed to go to hospitals. Meanwhile, you couldn't write much. I mean, most of those hospitals were nothing to write home about. And when you go into the hospitals, the care providers, different unions, it's been one union fight or another in the last 50 years. So an average consultant in Edo State today earns 2 times what the governor earns. But the governor cannot supervise and make sure that that doctor is in hospital every day, because he comes there, he still has his own private clinic. So whether it's a drug program, it's this, there's no accountability. So COVID, we were spending all this money, we were asking for data, we were doing screening, but net, if you now look at the number of people we treated, when you relate the amount we spent to the number of people treated and the centers that were treated, most of them were not treated in government hospitals. But what is critical, what struck me, and I was telling the SSG this morning, which most of us must take away, it's not about finding faults. No. Honestly, you can't blame anybody for where we are today. We are all collectively culpable. Because when the PS was presenting about the Health Management Board, he says the Health Management Board was set up in 1971 under Ogbonge. And I asked the SSG, 1971, how many years ago is that? He said 50. I said, so the design of our healthcare system, which we're operating today, was one we set up 50 years ago, when the situation and circumstance of our state and our lives was totally different. And we're trying to operate our system 50 years after, and we expect it to work. Will it work? That is the reality. So we must redesign our healthcare system and stop quarreling and fighting amongst ourselves. Healthcare is a social good. Healthcare is also an economic good. Let's just structure it so that we can have access, we can have quality, and we can treat ourselves here so that we don't need to travel. We don't pay less going abroad when we go and treat ourselves. We don't. We pay much more. So if we have that kind of money to go abroad to treat ourselves there, why can't we pay less to get better care here? It has to do with governance. Because as far as I'm concerned, there's no reason why Edo State will not be a medical hub. Because in this state alone, you have over 2,000 very well-trained medical doctors. Not to talk about the rest of medical personnel you have. And what is healthcare? It's knowledge, it's people. Equipment, you can always buy equipment. So for us, what is this about? I'm expecting that by the time we leave here today, we should all have agreed that, look, there's an opportunity to make this state the medical destination, at least in the southern part of this country, if not the south-south. How are we going to do it? It's by first telling ourselves the truth, that what we have now is not working. And that, God forbid you are ill today, something happens to you. It will not matter whether it is UBTH, whether it's Faith Medical, whether it is General Hospital, it will not matter where you end up. What will be important is that you'll be able to get care, quality care that brings you back to life and you're well again. So we must see the healthcare system as one, just not only government's responsibility. It is a collective. It must be a system that works through and everybody can see what is going on. There are, as far as I'm concerned, 4 key elements. First, governance. There must be governance at the apex level, at the government level. For me, as governor of Edo State, what is my responsibility for healthcare? My responsibility is not primarily to provide you hospitals, no. My responsibility is to create a system where every citizen in Edo State can have access to quality, effective healthcare services. Whether that service is being provided by a federal hospital, a state hospital, a private hospital, or a local hospital. So it's about creating the environment and creating regulation and standards. For me to regulate, to create standards, to create policies, I must have the best quality people working in the healthcare system. They must know more than the markets they are regulating. So the quality of people who work in our Ministry of Health has to be of a higher standard than the rest of the industry. Because they are going to help direct the industry, the health industry, in the direction it wants to go. So governance is key. Governance at the state level and governance at the institutional levels. Our laws should be very, very clear. Because healthcare is about regulation. You just can't do what you like. There must be ways to do things. And somebody must check that you've done things the way it ought to be done. And if you haven't done, there must be penalties. In America, as a doctor, you know, you just can't go and perform a surgery or any process without following the process because there are penalties. You will lose your license, you will go to jail, you will lose money if you do the wrong things. But here, you just find, oh, this case went, somebody died in this hospital, nobody checked to find out what happened and why that patient died. We just move on. That will be the responsibility of the state going forward. Technology is important. Technology gives you the edge. It gives you a certain level of transparency for us to see what is going on. Whether it's at the primary healthcare level, with the technology in those clinics, we should see the patients that come in. The nurse must be able to give us medical records of that person that came in there and what they reported for, so that we can escalate that information into the secondary tier or the specialist care. So technology is key, both for managing the healthcare diseases themselves and also managing the healthcare process. The other key is training. These days, I really don't understand nursing schools, your school of midwifery, your school of health technology. Go into them and it's like the same political arrangements. Give my brother work. Oh, I'm now provost of this. It's all fight about, I don't know what it is. And at the end of the day, the schools lose accreditations, certificates they are given are not recognized, and the mess just continues. When you come back into the hospitals and you don't find these people the quality care, the good ones go abroad because that's where they find the market. All of that needs to change. Government's role is to now invest in training and ensuring quality standards for our medical personnel. We need data so that I can tell, just like I can tell in education, anybody that walks through a primary healthcare center, we know that that person has been there. We know that that person has complaints, high blood pressure. We want to be able to keep very adequate records on immunizations. Because today's world is all about data. You just don't fall ill and die overnight. It takes time. There's always a medical history. And our healthcare system should be able to help you track and treat. That is the purpose of what we're trying to achieve. Infrastructure for hospital. For us as a government, I say our emphasis is going to be on basic care, on primary health care. What is interesting is that in Edo, Julie, how many healthcare centers we have? 400 and something? 500 and something. That's what we have. Because everybody builds healthcare centers. But how many are functional? We're struggling to get 60, 70 to be functional. Because, this legislator's constituency project is healthcare. Somebody will come from Abuja, they will build healthcare center. This one will come, build healthcare center. Local government will build healthcare center. All in the bush, nobody cares because you just want to build something and take your money and go away. So we say, no, it's not going to work like that. Let's go to the communities, decide, have standards. How many rooms, what will be the minimum that will be there? But in whatever you do, there must be 24/7 electricity. There must be water. There must be security. And there must be a minimum complement of about 6 staff with that computer and a system that helps us see what is going on in that center. For secondary care, there are many models. Secondary care, as far as I'm concerned, should not be too big a deal. Because many of you in the room here, the NMA, most of you are into secondary care of some sort. The issue is how do we organize and pool resources together? There are too many small clinics. I don't know how many people are making money off their clinics. There's really no reason why you cannot come and practice in a government hospital. Because the way we should see healthcare is that government is the largest investor in hospitals by virtue of the general hospitals you have, right? But you're also competing with other private providers. You are competing with federal providers, but you should also collaborate. So there's no reason why Stella Obasanjo, which we're building, yes, it's our hospital, but there's no reason why some of you cannot come in there and bring your patients and use our billing system. So the point I'm making is, for us to be able to build the required infrastructure that we need for healthcare, it can't be done by one agency alone. What we are doing as a state is to encourage investments. So it's important that when you look into the future, the infrastructure for healthcare can be built. It is not a big problem. The financing for equipment is available. What we must move away from is, oh, this is my own. You know, I am a doctor. By the time I finish building the hospital, I have this. You don't have any money left to even run the hospital properly. And you just, rather than you focus on your core specialization, you are worrying about how to deal with banks, how to deal with equipment suppliers and all of that. So we must begin to help the system rethink itself. I don't say we have solutions ready, but there's nothing we are trying to do here today that has not been done somewhere in the world before. There's nothing new. What we have is the advantage that we have the population, we have the markets, we have the knowledgeable people. And once we can just agree, align, and streamline our systems and processes, nobody will develop the kind of healthcare systems we have in West Africa, in the state. The vision I see are two. First, how do we provide healthcare for ourselves? Two, we are a junction state. People must pass through. If you sit in this state every day, at least 50,000 people pass through the state. Many of them are carrying diseases, they are ill. Why can't they stop here and we treat them and they pay us? Is that not going to be a big economy? That is what you call medical tourism. I'm not saying people should come abroad, even just within our own ecosystem. If you have a viable healthcare business, it's going to be very, very profitable. I haven't come with any solutions. What I have come to tell you is that we see promise. We have what it takes. I saw it in the last 1 year. But the way we are operating our healthcare system today is very, very dysfunctional. We are wasting too much in the guise of trying to do things the old way. We must rethink, have a total rethink. Let us forget about how it used to be done. Let us look at where we are today, look at the world ahead of us tomorrow, and say, how do we reorganize ourselves to go in that direction? I know you medical people are very conservative, you're not like us, but the truth is that, conservative as you are, you couldn't tell us that COVID is coming, and COVID is here with us. Thank you very much.